Welcome to Education 360, Mary and Heidi. Here we delve into the depths of education to uncover its multifaceted dimensions. In our inaugural episode, we're diving into the profound impact of holistic education on shaping individuals ready to thrive into our dynamic world. Joining us today on this podcast are Mrs. Heidi Berry, the headmistress of our prep school, and Mrs. Mary Robertson Barnett, the headmistress of our senior school. Thank you to both of you for being with us today. We have the privilege today of gaining their insights from their extensive knowledge and experience, and I'm confident that their contributions will enrich our discussions today and provide valuable perspectives on nurturing the whole child. So let's get started, shall we? I'll start with you, Mary, if I may. What is holistic education and how does it differ from traditional educational approaches?
So first of all, thank you so much for inviting us here today to speak with you. This is a lovely opportunity. Holistic education is exactly what it says. It's about educating the whole individual. And I think what encapsulates it is, if we think about it in terms of a 360-degree view of that child. So yes, what happens in the classroom is so important. That's the foundation of our learning. But it goes so far beyond that. It's about the opportunities that we're presenting within, outside, alongside the classroom learning to really help our pupils to explore what their talents are, what their areas of development are, and to guide them, to nurture them through this. All of us love success, and it's great to do the things that we're good at. And in a holistic world, we can continue to develop those talents. But actually, what I also like to look at is where we need to develop. If we're really good at one thing, how do we bring everything else up to that? So it might be that I'm not, sports person. So if I can achieve that with my team building and my learning and my communication skills and the relationships that I need to manage in terms of my sport, how do I do that as well? How do I apply that to the academic that I'm looking at? How do I take my strengths and continue to develop, building in all those resilience responses that we need? Because sometimes it doesn't go right. So what are we doing to nurture, to guide our pupils to achieve this 360 development so that when our pupils progress to what will be their wide futures, they are equipped to succeed. We are shaping our global citizens.
Very well said, Mary. So why is it important to nurture this whole child? You've explained that very aptly. You've also touched on how the academic perspectives can be nurtured alongside their strengths or their areas for growth. Heidi, could you also address how you could help how you could use holistic development or this holistic educational approach to address their intellectual, emotional, social, and physical needs?
Absolutely. So when you've got a young child joining a school, you don't just think about what their skills are in their academic areas. You've got to, in fact, the very first thing you need to do in order to be able to teach them is to make sure you know them and that they feel comfortable with their environment. So that's their emotional education, really, and encouraging children to learn how to interact with each other. I think at primary level, that's probably as much time spent as it is teaching them their English and their maths and their science, because they're actually learning how to live in the world. And it's so easy at home, if you don't have any brothers and sisters, to say, oh, I'm good at sharing. How different when you put them in a class. We've got wonderful small classes in our schools, but actually still you have to learn to interact with different children, with different beliefs, different ideals, different abilities, and to rub alongside each other. So we spend a lot of our time educating them in that. And I think children need to understand that school is all of that. So it's not just about the lessons, it's about learning how to be and learning how to live in the world. And I think when you do that and you put that first in your education, you get success.
Interesting. Heidi, you've been with Sherborne Dorset for a while. And then we're very, very fortunate to have you here with us in Sherborne, Qatar. So are there any specific learnings that you brought with you, any observations that you brought with you from your Dorset years?
Absolutely. I think it's not specifically Sherborne, it's the prep school life, really. So I think what prep schools do best is that they do look at the whole child. It's not simply a list of subjects. You don't simply go through the timetable and off you go home. It's all about building. Well, prep means preparing for life, not just for your secondary school experience or for your university experience or for your job. It's actually for how to live in the world, as I was saying, really about the time we spend in primary schools, teaching them that. And prep schools deliver so much of the curriculum to that. So you make sure that it's got a really good balance of the sport, the drama, the dance, the music, alongside all of the academic things, because they're equally important. And you need to help that child to find their special thing, the thing that's going to make them shine, as Mary said, as well as addressing weaknesses and building up all of aspects of their education. Prep school experience does help them to find those things, because by trying them out, and I think when you're young and you're still resilient and you haven't closed the door to things, it's the time to try things. And that's what I try to do with the children here, is to make sure their experience is a very wide and broad one.
Thank you. That was very interesting and very enlightening. Let's shift our focus, shall we, a little bit to the crucial role our wonderful teachers play in fostering this holistic development at Sherborne. So what role do you think our teachers play? How do they enhance this entire, or what shall I say, how do they shape this personality in line with the vision of Sherborne and in line with this entire vision of developing a holistic child?
Okay, so when we are building our teams as head teachers, what we're looking for is teachers who will do just that, who will support, who will nurture, who are excellent in their chosen field, and will help our pupils to find, as Heidi was saying, the thing that makes them shine, their brilliance. But that only comes through time spent, through developing relationships, through knowing our pupils and supporting them in all aspects, whether it's their emotional development, whether it's their academic development. I like to remove the walls from those. I think it's about keeping that whole view of the child at the centre of everything that you're doing. And our truly excellent educators who we have at Sherborne do just that. They don't channel into just one aspect. They are very much aware of how different aspects of the child's life will inform their learning and that whole experience that they're wanting to guide the child through.
Thank you, Mary. So taking a cue from what you said, we have this traditional approach to education which has always been academically focused. And here we are at Sherborne, always talking about holistic education and how it benefits the development or promotes the development of the whole child. So can you explain to me, Heidi, how do you balance both these narratives, and how to, I'm sure you bring in a lot of the academic education as well into what you're giving the children, but how do you balance both these narratives when you talk about it the Sherborne way?
Absolutely. Well, I think they are all absolutely intertwined, and many of the things that you're building in children are their confidence, their ability to think outside the box, to apply problem solving. And these are things that can happen on the sports field, they can happen in their maths lesson, they can happen if they're doing a science experiment. So everything is intertwined. It's not just about the maths curriculum that they're learning. And I think that's really important for children to understand as well, that their skills are transferable and that something that they've learned should actually be carried across. And because our teachers in the primary years teach partly through topic and seeing those links between subjects, the children can see them too. It's not just, oh, that's science, I can't apply that today because I'm not in my science lesson. Absolutely you can. And the maths that you learn in your maths lesson helps you in your science lesson, and it helps you on the sports field, and your music lesson will help you in your maths lesson. And all of those things are absolutely intertwined, so they are equally important. And more than that, it helps you to grow in your academic ability. So they are absolutely hand in hand.
Right. And I know we do a lot with also coaching parents, supporting caregivers to develop and have a supporting environment at home, because obviously both are so important to the development of a child. So could you share with me some initiatives that we have started at Sherborne for parents and caregivers to help them along the way?
I think the parental coffee mornings and information sessions are really important. That's about building the partnership and making sure that we are keeping the child at the centre of everything we're doing. Early habits of reading with your child, so important. If you can spend that 20 minutes a day, it's a lovely time to sit and share and look at what's been happening, new words, new excitement, talking through it. And this is all about how we're equipping our children to communicate, and with our parents, encouraging them to come into school to work with us.
True, very true. Also in today's world, we keep saying we're equipping our children for the world and the challenges of the world. We are also very focused on a values-led education at Sherborne. In the world today, it's very important to be empathetic, to be resilient, to be emotionally intelligent, to be emotionally connected with whoever you're interacting with. So how do we develop these areas in our children so they become better world citizens as they grow up?
I can lead with that a little bit. I think it's going back to the fact that they're not just at school to learn their academics, and we spend a lot of our time talking to them about their relationships with each other. And when that goes wrong, that's a fantastic opportunity to talk to them about how they could tackle it differently the next time. And that's actually linking back to your last question about parents, because I think it's really important to get parents on board with those conversations so they understand what their child is going through. And sometimes a child's emotional intelligence might not be quite where their peers' emotional intelligence is, and you've got to help them to work through that. You've got to build that for them, and you've got to help their friends to understand that what this child is working on is slightly different, and that we've all got things that we're working on, and maybe they didn't react quite right, appropriately in that particular circumstance, but look what they've learned from it. And if the parents understand too, that's absolutely wonderful, because they can take that home and do the same when something doesn't go quite right for them in their home life too.
Okay, interesting. Yes, I've seen a lot of that happening at Sherborne. I know for a fact that there are some misconceptions or some people who criticize this holistic education approach. Are there any particular misconceptions you would like to address today and speak to people about?
I think sometimes there can be an element of questioning about, as you've pointed out, the academic side of things. As a head, what I'm always doing is looking 2 or 3 stages ahead for each of my children. So I have to know the children, and I have to know the opportunities that we're presenting. And the holistic development keeps the excitement in the education. Our children don't come to school to fail. Our children come in aged 3, excited about learning through discovery, through exploration, and they succeed. And if it doesn't quite go as they thought it might, then there is the guidance from the teacher, and they have a go and they do it differently. And all the time they're developing that critical thinking, the problem solving, the communication skills and so on. So in our early years foundation stage, very aptly named foundation stage, because that's where we're setting the foundations for the sort of education that our children are going to experience. And as they move through school, I think the challenge for us as educators is to keep that same sense of discovery and excitement. I want my pupils who are approaching GCSEs to be thinking about that as an opportunity to shine, not something stressful, because they've been equipped for this through excellent teaching and opportunities, but they've gone beyond the strictures of the curriculum because they've had these amazing experiences of holistic development. And that then all comes into their responses, where they have this amazing opportunity to share their thoughts with an expert somewhere else in the world who will be looking at their exam paper going, wow, I hadn't thought about it from that angle. What an interesting idea. And it's all about embedding in our pupils that sense of success, excitement, and an understanding that when they face a challenge, they have the capacity and the agency to overcome that. There was a lovely phrase that I saw on the front of an admissions brochure for a college in Cambridge. So I'm borrowing their strapline, which is speed bumps on the road to success. And that's what any of our challenges within education that our children experience, that's what they are. They're a speed bump. And we're here to help them navigate the speed bump. And if they meet these speed bumps where they're in this lovely supportive environment, where they know they have their teachers they can talk to, they know they have their peers that are going to support them, home is there supporting, we overcome, we find a route through. And when we face those challenges as adults, we know we're equipped, we can deal with it, and therein lies our successful wide futures. But it's all because of what started in our early years foundation stage.
True, those formative years, yeah? They say between the ages of 1 and 5, they make your character, they build your character for life. Yeah. So having said that, I'm going to ask you a little bit of a rhetorical question. How do you envision this whole holistic education, these trends shaping holistic education evolving through the years? Say you have a child now entering your early years and you build holistic education approaches towards this child. And how do you see these trends evolving over the years so that this child is then equipped to handle whatever challenges he or she may face? So any trends you see shaping this approach to education?
I think the thing is that the world is changing very quickly at the moment, and education has to keep up. And perhaps there's been criticism of education generally in the last 50 years, perhaps, that it hasn't changed quickly enough. And I think we're quite forward-thinking here at Sherborne, and we try very much to make sure that the children have got the skills that they need to develop and evolve as the world changes. So, for example, as part of Through Play, our very youngest children will be exploring technology, will be programming. Their programming skills start right at the beginning in our preschool classes, and they need that. That's not to say they're on screens all day, far, far from it, and still playing in the sand and getting muddy are equally important. But we have to make sure they're building those skills too. And I think that's the important thing, to keep an eye on the future, to always be several steps ahead in our thinking, and to be brave to change our curriculum if we need to make sure that we're always at the cutting edge of what they're going to need.
Thank you, Mary and Heidi. I think it's been a very enlightening journey into the world of holistic education. Stay tuned for more insightful discussions on Education 360 as we have our very next podcast coming up soon. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.